So I'm resuming the class. Now we come to the open economy, right? Um, so far, our model was very simple. Aggregate demand was equal to consumption, investment, and we had government spending. So this is what we call the closed economy. Now let us allow for the possibility of exports and import. Okay. At any point of time when we are producing, a country is producing, the demand comes from within the country, what we call domestic demand. The demand can also come from outside the country, what we call foreign demand. So that means if India is producing, by the way, I hope you can see this screen.
It's the
Yeah. So that means Indian products may be demanded by, let us say, UK. So this will constitute exports of the country. Now, what is export a function of? Export, what we write as X, this is a function of foreign income, right? But can India change the foreign income of UK? In fact, it depends on two things. It depends on income. It depends on, as you'll see, it depends on prices. But prices we have held to be, assumed to be constant. So this implies that we can assume X to be constant for a country, right? X equal to X bar. Now let us come to inputs. Sorry. What are inputs? Let us say India has produced has an income of, let us say, 10,000 and MPC is equal to, let us say, 0.8. So what is consumption demand? What is consumption demand in that case?
Sir, 8,000.
It is 0.8 into 10,000 equal to 8,000. So people, the consumers or households, are spending 8,000 rupees on consumption. Now this can be spent to purchase Indian goods, but they can also be spent on foreign goods. The latter comprises imports, what we write as M. Now, what is M a function of? Of course, prices. But we know that consumption, any type of consumption or any type of demand, depends upon income. Export depended on income. The income was not of India but of UK, US, other countries where India exported. In this case, what is the income that is relevant?
Sir, Indian. The Indian citizens' income.
Yeah, so this depends upon the Indian, the domestic Indian. Now when Y increases, your consumption goes up, consumption demand increases, right? So over here, if your Y increases, how much will what will happen to imports? Imports are going to rise. So that means dm by dy will be what? Positive or negative?
Sir, positive. If Y increases, then M will also increase.
It is going to be positive. So the propensity, marginal propensity to import will lie between 0 and 1. Okay. Marginal propensity to import. Okay. Now, just I'm going to write something, just think about it. Import comprises leakages from the domestic economy. Do you understand what I mean by this statement?
So, is it something like that? Some product which can't be produced domestically, that we need to import. So, can that be considered to be a leakage?
Sir,
No,
I think for in case of imports, the money is actually going from our country to outside, so it constitutes leakages.
Acha. Sorry, I don't recognize your voice. Who are you?
Chopin.
Acha. Very good, Chopin. Yes, I mean, see, when income rises, our demand goes up, right? And this stimulates the economy. But if you are spending on import, does it stimulate the Indian economy?
No, sir.
It stimulates the foreign economy. That is why if there's an increase in domestic consumption, it is going to stimulate the Indian economy. But if you are going to spend on imports, it will also stimulate, but not India, the foreign economy. So the increased spending on foreign goods stimulates foreign economies. In fact, if you spend more on inputs, so let us say that you have two situations. You have income of 1000. In one case, you are spending 1000 in all. One economy is spending 800 on domestic demand, 200 on imports. The other economy is spending 500 on imports. In which case will consumption stimulate the domestic economy? Obviously, in the first case, if you are spending 800 to buy Indian products, Indian producers are going to increase their production by 800. But if you spend only 500, the remaining 500 you import, who is going to increase production? Foreign producers. Yeah. So in this way you have these two demand. And finally, let us introduce another term which is very simple, net export. This is equal to X minus N. So we write this as X minus N. Okay, we can define this as, this is called balance of trade, export minus import. Okay, and remember that X is constant. Okay. Okay. Now, how do we change the Keynesian model? Aggregate demand is now equal to consumption, which is a function of disposable income. You have got private investment demand, you have got government investment demand. You have three types of demand in the closed economy. Now, when you open up the economy, who is demanding Indian products? Foreigners. So you have export. At the same time, part of your income is going away to purchase foreign commodities. So it becomes minus M. Your demand falls by My. E is the domestic demand. Remember that. If you are considering total demand, then it would have been plus My. But now we want to look at what is the demand for domestic products. That is why we are subtracting My. Okay. So the equilibrium condition will be Y equal to this. Okay. You can also write this as in this form. So you can think of if you go back to the cross Keynesian model, this is the 45-degree line, and now you bring in the this is the C plus I plus G. Okay, if you add the balance of trade, and we assume that the balance of trade is positive, you have a line like this. So this is aggregate demand, this is Y, this black line indicates C equal to Y, this is C plus I plus G, and this is we have assumed that this is positive. And if it is negative, what will happen? Suppose you have a
That SG would have been above the green line.
or rather the green line would have been below the blue line.
Blue line.
Uh, you can also see the equilibrium condition is, the alternative equilibrium condition was Sy plus T equal to I plus G, right? In an open economy, the condition will become like this. Okay. Acha, by the way, this should always be, this will also be a function of disposable income. I have written Y by mistake, but if you have taxes, then your consumption expenditure, whether on domestic production or on foreign products, is going to be disposable income. Okay, so this will become the equilibrium condition, and in that case you have a lot of lines. So this will be the I plus G, so you have, and this is the S plus T. If you want to add exports, so this gap is the exports. Anyways, better let me not draw this, it becomes complicated. Oh. So using this equation also you can solve it. Acha. Now what I want to focus on is on the balance of trade. Okay, so you have x like this, and your import is a function of income. So this is import, this is constant exports, and this is y. Right. Achha. So what will be the balance of trade in that case? Look over here. This part, if you look at this part, x is greater than m, so you have a surplus balance of trade. If you look at this part, x is less than m, so that you have a
Trade.
trade deficit. And over here, let us call this y star. Here x equal to n, you have a balanced trade account, neither deficit nor surplus. So let us say that this is y star, and let us draw the export import line, the balance of trade line. What will be the shape? It will be linear, let us say, but initially will it be positive or will it be negative? Will it be a positively
Negative.
sloped line or negatively sloped line?
Negative slope, because on the left hand side we have the trade surplus, so it will be above the vertical axis. Sorry, horizontal axis. Horizontal axis is upore hobe, so it will be higher only.
So the trade surplus will be like this. You have a surplus over here, you have a deficit over here, and here you have balanced trade, as I've told you. Okay. Now let us look at the possible causes of equilibrium, disequilibrium. Suppose there is a boom in the foreign country and the foreign income increases. In that case, will imports be affected? How will imports be affected?
I don't. So the exports will increase, but import, will they be affected because they depend on the domestic in no.
Yeah, export will rise. And in that case, what will happen to the balance of trade?
It will increase.
You are going to have a surplus will
Surplus.
emerge. Okay, so this can be shown very easily. So this was the situation, and then export rises parallelly. Okay. So just 1 second, please. এই দুটো দিন। So this was a balance of trade line. How will it change now?
Sir, can you repeat the question? I mean, how will it change native business?
Me too. Me must. Yeah, sorry. Let me write it down first. So this is my, this is f, right? Okay. So this is the balance of trade. So this is the initial balance of trade line. Now if
Yes,
exports foreign income increases, how will this second line, this line x minus m, how will this change?
yes. Sir, it will parallelly shift upwards because the intercept will increase.
Yeah, so
Because,
at every level you are going to have higher
yes,
levels
sir.
of trade.
Exports.
Yeah. Okay, so you are going to have a curve like this. This part is very easy. Now let us come to the second part. Suppose there is a change in prices. So what happens is, let us say foreign prices fall and Indian prices goes up. Okay, so you can look at this ratio. This is called the terms of trade. What will happen in that case?
Sir, imports will increase. Sir.
What will happen to exports? First tell me that.
I think the exports will be unaffected in that. No, no, no. Indian prices are going up, right? Then exports will decrease for that reason. Because if Indian prices goes up, then it will decrease. Subsequently, the imports will increase.
Foreign consumers
Will decrease consumption of our products.
buy less of Indian goods. They have now become costly. And what will happen to imports?
So imports will increase because
Indian
Indian consumers
consumers
will start consuming the foreign products more because they are now relatively cheaper than before.
will buy cheaper foreign products, and so imports will rise.
Increase.
So, what will happen to the balance of trade?
So deficit.
You now have a deficit. So, you can think of this in this way. Sorry, the lines are not properly drawn. Okay. So initially we have a situation like this. Now what is going to happen? Prices have changed. What will first happen to exports? How will the export function change?
So the export line will come downwards parallelly
Exactly.
and the
Sorry.
horizontal.
So let me draw this. Okay, so exports is going to come here.
Come
What will
parallelly downward.
parallel downward? Very good. And what will happen to imports?
Import to बढ़ ना. Yes, sir. It will come parallelly upward.
Not parallel, it's starting from 0. So it is
Oh,
going
oh,
to
oh, sir.
rotate upwards.
Yeah, yeah. It is changing. It is dependent on Y. Yes, sir. I just
Yeah.
forgot. Yeah.
And here it won't be a parallel shift, it's going to be a rotation. So X will shift parallelly, M will rotate, is going to rotate upwards. Sorry, it was my mistake. What will happen to, and over here also we can see that the BOT rotates downwards. Right, this part is clear. And suppose you have the opposite. The terms of trade improves. That means foreign prices rises, Indian products falls. What will happen in that case? The opposite will
So
happen. Now we start from
yes,
the brown lines, and the black line is the new situation.
that line will.
So X will shift parallelly upwards, M will rotate downwards, BOT will all rotate downwards. It's just the opposite. You just have to change everything. What is rising is now falling, what is decreasing will now rise. Okay? So just work
Yes,
through
sir.
this part. Now, when I have discussed the change in relative prices, I have ignored one very important thing, which is the foreign currency. See, are the US products, are they sold in rupee terms?
No,
Suppose you
sir.
want to,
Dollar.
they are in dollar term. In fact, if you foreign trade often, I mean, if you look at the Russian thing, what have been, they have been arguing, Putin has been arguing that if the European Union wants to purchase oil, natural gas, it will have to pay in terms of rubles. Right? It cannot
Yes, sir.
purchase. I mean, his logic is then all the people, all the European Union will have to purchase rubles to pay Russia. So that is going to lead to a change in the exchange rate for rubles. The price of rubles in the foreign exchange market is going to go up. So if you look at this thing, at any point of time, we have a exchange rate. Do you know what is the exchange rate for dollars? Roughly.
What? Yes.
70s.
It is in the
Which month?
70s. When I was in class 4-5, it was in around 34-35. Now it has almost doubled. For pounds,
Money, sir. To money. I mean, rupee.
yeah. So that means if you have to buy $1, you have to pay 70 rupees.
Acha.
Now this has a very important implication for trade also.
স্যার
হ্যাঁ বলো।
পাউন্ড তো মোর ভ্যালুয়েবল না আরো বেশি
পাউন্ড হচ্ছে তোমার 110 মতো, আর ইউরো ইজ রাফলি 80।
মানে ডলারের থেকে বেশি ভ্যালুয়েবল তো পাউন্ড।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, ইয়েস। Let's suppose that this is the exchange rate. I don't know exactly what it is. It will be some in point something, but let's ignore it. Achha. Suppose we have a
76
Achha, but let's keep it at 75. We have an Indian good that is sold for rupees 150. Suppose it is exported to US. What is the price over there?
$2.
Yeah, actually it will be more because you have cost, insurance, freight. Remember, I told you about two things:
Yes,
fee
sir,
on
yes.
board and cost insurance. But let us ignore them. The price will be USD 2. On the other hand, suppose we are importing a US product whose price is, let us say, 1. How much do we have to pay?
75
Okay. Now tell me, see, you can have two things. Before the mid 80s, the exchange rate was fixed. That means the government decided what the exchange rate is. And if they want to change the exchange rate, then we call it devaluation. So we have fixed exchange rate, which is determined by the government. And if the government changes this exchange rate, we call it devaluation. The other thing is depreciation. Suppose you have a flexible exchange rate. which is determined in the market. By demand and supply of USD and rupees. Suppose there is an increase in dollars. What will happen? All the people wants to buy dollars. In that case, what will happen? The price of dollars will go up.
That's it. Price will go up.
Okay, this is called depreciation. Okay, so the only difference between devaluation and depreciation is that devaluation occurs at a fixed exchange rate, the government changes it. Depreciation or appreciation occurs when you have a flexible exchange rate, which is determined by demand and supply in the foreign exchange market. Okay, so in that case, what will be the new exchange rate?
It will be decided by the market forces.
No, it has gone up.
Then
So it will be like
it will be more-
something like INR 80 is equal
80,
to
yeah,
1 USD.
$1.
Okay. See, the effect, however, is the same in both. Whether you have devaluation or depreciation, in both cases, 80 rupees is now equal to 1 USD. If you have appreciation, what will happen? The exchange rate is 75.1. Now you have appreciation. It will
71.
70, 71 like this, equal to 1 USD. Anyway, let us assume that there has been depreciation. Okay, let's make it. It has become a bit complicated. Okay, so let us make it 150. Just to make it easier. Actually, the devaluation doesn't occur that much, but let us assume it does. So now we had an Indian commodity that was sold for 150. Okay, so what is the price of the exported good in US?
So 300.
The price is 150 over here. So when US citizens were purchasing, they had to pay $2. Now how much will they pay?
One.
One.
So what has happened to price?
It has fallen from $2 USD to 1 USD.
Yeah. So export price has fallen. And what will happen to exports then?
And exports will
Increase.
Exports will rise.
So that is why some country deliberately depreciate their
Exactly.
value.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, what is the price of the imported good? In India? See, US
So
hasn't
150.
changed the price. It was USD how much? 1.
Yes, sir.
Now it is going to cost
150.
150.
150 rupees.
So, PM has risen, M will fall.
Fall.
So, this is exactly the opposite of this. foreign prices falls, Indian prices goes up. Okay, now this is the opposite of what we had discussed.
Yes, sir.
So what will happen now? What will
The
happen
trade,
to export?
price of trade will get a surplus. It will rise and M will fall.
Okay. So now let's see, the export will shift downwards parallelly. The import will rotate upwards. Right? Achha. But first, before that, let me copy this. Okay. Now there's a problem. Wait.
Sir, I have a doubt, sir.
Yeah, tell me.
Sir, is there any relation between the inflation and how money, how the currency value changes? Is there any relation with the inflation
Yeah,
and
I mean, if you want, you can relate this. Suppose there's inflation in the economy, Indian economy. So,
yes,
what
sir,
will happen to the price of exports?
will increase,
Okay, price of exports increases. What will happen to export?
It will
decrease?
fall.
It is going to fall. So, India is earning, if you look at the foreign exchange market, are dollars coming in?
No, sir.
No,
Foreign
sir.
exchange reserve is not increasing.
Yeah. How is the foreign exchange coming in? Through exports?
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Achha. Now, what will happen to imports? Exactly the opposite will happen to imports. The US products are now cheaper compared to Indian products, Indian substitutes. So, you are going to import more and you are going to demand more foreign exchange. So, what has
Yes,
happened is your demand for dollars has gone up, supply has gone down. What will happen to price? The exchange rate. Dollars are going to become costlier. You are going to have
yes, sir.
depreciation. But let us assume, I mean, it's going to make things complicated. So, let us assume that there's only the domestic prices in both countries are constant. Only the exchange rate is changing. Okay. Now, there's one thing which you should look at. First, let us look at export. See, what is the value of exports? Right? Px into Qx?
Yes, sir.
Achha. Okay, now if you look at Px, Px has risen. So, কি হলো এটা? Depreciation implies that Px has risen. At the same time, Qx will fall, negatively sloped demand. But what will happen to value? Can you tell me what will happen to value? Px into Qx. Px has gone up, Q has fallen. What will be the product? You remember the problem that I had shown in the first semester? You have to take V right. So ultimately you will get a equation. What is this equal to?
স্যার ডিপি ওটা কি হলো স্যার ঠিক বুঝলাম না।
এখানে আমি just subscript, I've removed the subscripts.
আচ্ছা ওকে 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 ওকে
Okay, so this will be given by P dq by dq plus Q dp by dq. Right, so let us take P common. I've got 1 minus E. Right?
ইয়েস স্যার।
Acha, so if elasticity is greater than 1, what will happen?
Then
1 by E is less than 1.
yeah.
So what will happen to
dB
value of exports?
it will
This will be-
rise.
It will be positive.
Yes sir.
And if E is less than 1,
So then it will be negative.
it will be negative. Just one second. Okay. Let us assume that the elasticity is this case holds. Okay, there is no reason, but you can think about the different possibilities later on. Achha. Now let us look at imports. If you look at imports, what does depreciation imply? PM will fall.
Yes sir.
So imports are going to rise. What will happen to VM? The same thing. Okay, so again in this case, we are going, so এখানে let EM be greater than 1, then is equal to positive. Just following the above, this case. And if elasticity is less than 1, then value of inputs is going to come down. No, just a minute. না এখানে sorry, here you are going to have the opposite. এক মিনিট sorry, আমি এখানে sorry, I made a mistake over here. Let me change it. কপি করতে গিয়ে আমার গোলমাল হয়ে গেছে। আচ্ছা, what has happened to inputs? If you have depreciation, then import prices rises and imports will fall. The quantity imported will fall. Okay. The expenditure on imports will again depend upon elasticity of imports, and if E is greater than 1, then the value of imports will fall.
এখানে উল্টো হয়ে যাবে কিছু।
হ্যাঁ, এক মিনিট, আমি প্রথমটা ঠিক আছে তো আমি একবার দেখে নিই ডেপ্রিসিয়েশন কি এক্সপেক্ট করব। আচ্ছা, তোমার আচ্ছা
আমাদের ফ্রেম হবে না, মানে এখানে মানে নিজে তো স্যার 3 কি হচ্ছে এই ফর্মটাকে একই আসবে না।
না না না, লেট মি চেক ইট। আমার দ্য ফর্ম মে বি রং। ডিভি পি হয়ে যাচ্ছে, ওহো আই সরি, আই মেড আ মিস্টেক ওভার হিয়ার। ইট ওয়াজ ডিপি, আমি ডিকিউ ধরে করেছি। Sorry, the mistake is over here. Let me change it. dV by dP is equal to dPQ by dP, right? Acha, so this is equal to, this will be equal to Q plus P into dQ into dP. So if you take Q common, you have 1 minus E. So if E is less than 1,
If the less, yes, sir. So then DVDP will be positive.
dvdp will be positive if E is greater than 1, then dvdp is
Negative.
negative. So let us assume this. Acha. Okay, so okay, so by the same logic you are going to have this situation. If elasticity is greater than 1, then value of imports is going to fall. Okay, and if elasticity is less than 1, value of imports is going to rise. So what happens is, what will happen to balance of trade? Can we see a priori unless we know the elasticities?
No, sir. Just is the channel बोलते हैं.
What will happen to BOT if devaluation occurs? We know what will happen to price, export price, import price. We know what will happen to export quantity, import quantity. Okay, but the product, that we don't know because they are moving in opposite direction. If P goes up, quantity comes down. So if you have, actually there's a theorem over here which GC will teach you later on, which is called the Marshall-Lerner condition. This says that if elasticity of import plus elasticity of export is greater than 1, then BOT will improve. Okay, I'm not going into the proof of this. It's a pretty long proof, but this is the result of this. By the way, it is not Marshall and Lerner are two different persons, so you should hyphenate this. So if I go back to the earlier diagram, well, I know what is going to happen to export and import, but I don't know what is going to happen to the value of export or value of imports and to the balance of trade. Over here, there's a very interesting effect which says that once you have devaluation, it takes time for people to adjust. So immediately there is a deficit. The BOT deficit will emerge. But after some time, people adjust and then you are going to have a surplus. So you can see that this is a inverse J effect.
Sir, what is that small t? Is it time?
Time, this is time. So when there is devaluation, in the immediate period, maybe 1 month, deficit will worsen, but the economy will recover in the long run. And our surplus will be generated. Okay. So I have finished the course for simplification, I leave it to you as an exercise. I leave it to you as an exercise to do two things. Find out the balance budget multiplier, and secondly, just find out what is the export multiplier. And just intuitively, what will happen if the propensity to import increases? Will Y increase or will Y decrease?
The export multiplier means del y by del x.
Del Y by del X, yes. That is one thing. Second is you have to find out what is the balance budget multiplier. And third is, this I'm asking now, suppose the propensity to import goes up. What will happen in that case?
Negative balance of trade.
No, I'm talking about income. What will happen to national income? Just explain the logic.
Sir, I think it will decrease because import is a part of NF national net factor income to abroad. So I think it will decrease.
Okay. So if there's a import is basically a demand for your product, right? So if the demand for your product goes down, then this is going to reduce your incentive to produce. Anyway, so just try to find out all this and have a look at any of the books. Freund, Branson. I don't think Branson also you can take a look. Branson, Mankey, whatever. So this is called the G effect. Okay, so we will meet after. When are we going to meet? Next week.
So, asking